Welcome back to the morning show right here on ETV. Now, after 2 decades of shaping conversations in South Africa's media landscape, Relebogile Mabotja returns to television with Untied, a bold new Showmax original that dives deep into the untold emotional aftermath of divorce. As both host and associate producer, Relebogile creates space for raw honesty, healing and radical empathy. Now this morning she joins us to unpack why Untied is more than a show, it's a necessary reckoning for women everywhere. Relebogile, welcome to the morning show.
Thank you so much, and I love the fact that you use the word unpack.
Yeah.
Because that's also, there's the un and the un.
Yes, I see what you did there.
You see what I did there?
And I think, I firstly love that you are the person that is the one that is mediating or the one that is running these conversations, right? Because you've managed to have multiple stories told from people of different walks of life. We've seen you on Unpacked with Relebogile Mabotja, right? You've got your podcast now where we're also just finding out about some of our favorite entertainers as well. But this one is a little different, right? You're telling the stories of women that were hurt through divorce, their marriages, and it was like public in a sense, right? To tell these stories is not easy. And a lot of the time, you walk in with a certain perception and walk out with a different one. What was that like for you?
So for starters, I would say, I don't tell the story, I just facilitate and create a space for the women to tell their stories. Walking in, and this is just something that I had to make a decision on before I started doing Unpacked, is not to be overly prepared, which, for us as TV hosts, it's like such a contradiction. But the reason I felt that it was important not to be overly prepared is because the human nature of us will automatically have certain judgments about people. Now, when I was doing Unpacked, where I was very clear about what I wanted to do, which was speak to everyday people, I walked into the conversations with a basic overview and then got the opportunity to get to know this person without judgment, which means even if a person had done something that we consider insane, like killing another person, you can't judge them because they are not just that. So I walked in with the same attitude in these conversations, which is, yes, the headlines are one thing, but if you want to actually get the most out of a person, is come in with a blank canvas and say, paint and tell me who you are.
Sure. And walking out of that, what perception did you carry, if any?
So the one, I remember after some of the episodes, I'd be like, don't get married, guys.
I was about to ask, because
Don't
it's still safe to get married.
But on the other side, I think the perception, one of the perceptions that I realized is, as women, society, even though we're quite bold and liberal with speaking up, is still very much holding us to our identities and values being attached to your marital status. So many of them carry a certain amount of shame and guilt for the choices that they made. They carry a lot of shame and guilt for having allowed certain things to happen. But beyond that, there is so much hope in the story and in the stories shared, because these women have overcome some of the wildest things that I'm like, what? And they've also done some of the wildest things where I was like, you did what? So I think what I walked out with is understanding that the human experience is a lot more deep, wide, long than we believe in terms of what people are capable of doing, but also what they're capable of growing from and healing from.
Now with a show like Untied, right, you're dealing with high-profile people that, faced public humiliation, for lack of a better word, right? And in helping them tell their stories, there needs to be a safe space for them. How do you create that? Because I can imagine, like you were saying, you try to walk in unprepared and just let the moment carry itself, right? But there is a need for vulnerability, not just from you, but from them as well. So how do you then create that safe space for them?
I show them that I'm human too before the host part. So when I walk into many of the conversations, I'll say, are you nervous? And they'd be like, I'm definitely nervous. I said, don't worry, so am I.
And now I already feel like, sure, okay.
Yes, already from the start, I'm establishing that I'm nervous not just for how the public will look at me, because people will want to be like, what are your qualifications? You're not even married, but also just nervous for the part of, will I do justice to a person who is coming to the space vulnerable? I never want them to walk away feeling like I never felt heard, she never gave me a chance to blah, blah, blah. So I think show your humanity first. If you are judging a person, they will feel it. So go completely open-minded. And I always go with the rule that don't believe what you read on social media and whatever. So when I ask a question, I'm genuinely asking, did this person have a child outside your marriage? And they'll be like, oh, I thought everybody knew. I'm like, you never told me.
Yes, you want to hear from when.
Exactly. So always assume that what you know might not be the truth as well.
Sure. Now, you are on Untied as associate producer, right? Talk to us about that role and what it actually looks like.
So it's a funny story that my production company had pitched for Untied, and we had a vision for it, and we didn't get the gig, which happens. And then when I got contacted months later, I was like, this is so crazy, because I never even thought of myself in the host role. I always said the host must be somebody who's also gone through a divorce to be able to relate to the ladies. So when they contacted me, I was like, how's this gonna work? Why would they want to talk to me? And they're like, no, you're the perfect person. So when I later came on board as an associate producer, I think a lot of the ladies felt more comfortable when they knew it was me. Because a lot of them didn't get told prior who the host is, but some of them, I would be the one like, hey, I know you've been contacted by these people. I know you haven't responded. I'm calling you now. Please come. And when they say, oh my gosh, thank God it's you. Then I was like, okay, this role was meant for me. It clearly, like, the universe was like, this is meant for you.
Sure, man. Just by seeing the snippet, right? I think even for people that are maybe still considering the idea of marriage, there's a lot that we are possibly going to take away from that. And like you were saying earlier on, like, the whole construct around womanhood, around women is, being prepared for linyalo. Like, and it's a real thing that stays with a person, right? What have you felt are some of the things that we as women are going to unlearn when watching Untied?
I think the one thing we're going to unlearn is that our value exists outside of ourselves. So as in everything we've been taught of what makes you a woman exists outside, it does not, it exists within you. And it is going to take time for society to jump on board. But the most important thing is that you get to hear from other women who seem like they have it all. And you're going to realize we are all the same.
Figuring it out.
And there are going to be men as well who are going to watch and see themselves in the woman as well. Because I know right now it's the woman's perspectives, and I think it's a good start that way, because it's easier for women to speak out. We are used to it, as opposed to men being able to do so. But I really think that people are going to walk out with a different perspective on what their value is, and realizing that you are empowered enough, even outside of financial challenges, to walk away from something that doesn't serve you. And that applies not just to marriage, to anything in your life.
There was a comment that I saw on social media under the trailer that was saying, I'm so glad that this platform is creating a voice for women, or is giving women a voice, because often women are silenced and they're not given the opportunity to voice and tell their side of the story, right? Why do you feel it is so that women don't speak out?
I think there's shame and guilt to the part of not having known better or have been a different version of yourself previously. So it's easy if you're in your 40s to judge choices you made in your 20s. You were literally a completely different person. So it carries with it a certain level of shame. The other thing, of course, is these women are professionals with careers. And corporate world and making money world, capitalism does not respond well to a woman who, in inverted commas, failed at her marriage. And there's so many women that aren't featured on the show that you will see in public life, where every time they're spoken about is divorced woman, as if that's who they are, but they are so much more than being a divorced woman. So I think that there is just so much we can take away from this. And I think as women, we are entering an era where society is catching up to the fact that we are able to speak. We are able now to realize that maybe what our grandmothers taught us and what they lived through was not reality. There were things that they just inherited and continued. And maybe the next era is not about anything being anti-men or anything about feminism. It's just about living a life that serves you. And that includes men, that includes everybody across the board. Live a life that serves you, that helps you flourish, that complements you.
Yeah, that's so powerful. Just in wrapping up our conversation, you had moments on the show where you also got into your emotions, right? Where probably just hearing what you have just been told has broken you as well. How do you still manage to express that emotion while still balancing the task at hand?
So I have made it a point, and I'm so grateful to GOAT Productions and the entire team, and the Showmax team, who said, be yourself. Because I came in like, oh, how do I, show a different side of myself? I don't want this to be unpacked. They're like, no, be you. So finding the balance is remembering that the role of host is not like just something in a credit. Your role is to do what? Ask the questions that the audience would want to know the answers to. In the moments that I broke down, it's me being myself, being a human being. And if I needed to pause, I would take the time to pause. But I can't expect you to open up to me if when I'm teary, I'm like, cut, everybody stop shooting, let's reset.
Make
it real, because also you don't have to have gone through something to be able to empathize with the pain that a person might be going through. And I walked out with such a connection with each and every one of these women, and I can't wait for South Africans and the rest of the continent to just get to experience like, oh my goodness, is that what this person went through? And when you look at the timelines, you're like, but they were posting and looking at me like, girl, you went through that and you were still showing up.
Yeah, oh my gosh, we definitely can't wait. I'm super excited, and thank you for continuing to hold space for people, just generally. Like, I think you hold space for people so well. You make people tap into their vulnerability that they have just been so fearful of expressing, and I think that's so important in the times that we're facing right now, because sometimes, without us as people that are coming after women that have gone before us, without them telling their stories, we also then don't know how to navigate. So to have platforms like this, to have women like you that are at the forefront of facilitating the important conversations, I think is absolutely amazing. And we definitely can't wait for Untied.
And I mean, I just have to share, the only reason I can do it, obviously, is by the support of everybody. But the reason I have gotten to where I am, where people are like, are you a trained psychologist? Are you a counselor? I'm like, no, I just also have problems. And I'm also trying to find answers. I've also been through therapy. I'm also like questioning. So it heals me doing the work that I'm doing. It is purposeful, it is intentional, but I am equally in that role of, hey man, let's figure this thing out together.
Oh man, Relebogile Mabotja, thank you so much for your time, and we're definitely looking forward to watching Untied. Listen, from heartache to healing, Untied of course reminds us that there's power in reclaiming your narrative, even when it's messy, even when it hurts. Relebogile Mabotja holds space for stories that matter, and we definitely can't wait to watch Untied when it drops on Showmax. Stick around, we're back with more right after the break.